Chapter 28, the Martian Niagara. The thoughts are strange that crowd into my brain while I look upward to thee. It would seem as if God poured thee from his hollow hand, and hung his bow upon thy awful front, and spoke in that loud voice which seemed to him who dwelt in Patmos for his Saviour's sake, the sound of many waters, and had bade thy flood to chronicle the ages back, and notch his centuries in the eternal rocks. Niagara, Brainerd. During my sojourn at the villa, Altafora and I took frequent excursions on horseback through the surrounding country. He possessed an extensive collection of fine-blooded horses, which, in beauty of form, spirit, and speed, were wholly superior to the finest bred studs seen on earth. The colors of some were similar to ours, but others were totally different, with bright and glossy coats, the color of burnished gold, copper, or dark blue, and vice versa, with manes and tails of purple, brilliant gold, or bright crimson. Their intelligence and docility, the result of careful and judicious breeding and training through many generations, were wonderful. They required neither whip nor spur, being perfectly controlled by the voice of the rider. From early youth I was accounted a skilful horseman, and prided myself accordingly. But as I soon found myself quite overmatched by Altafora, while the princess surpassed us both in daring equestrian feats, I usually rode a bright bay, and, as horses here as well as on the terrestrial turfs were endowed with names, that of mine, by reason of certain fine points, was Alta Rohita. Altafora preferred his favorite Turnish Grishna, a magnificent animal of dark purple with golden mane and tail. Yavan Arjuna, the favorite steed of the princess, was a mare of extraordinary beauty and intelligence. She implicitly obeyed the slightest word or gesture of her mistress. Her color was white as snow, her mane and tail like rippling mother of pearl. Her speed was amazing. In our contests over the grassy plains, not only would she outstrip Alta and Turgina, renowned as were their powers, but her wonderful leaps over lofty hedgerows, stone walls, and streams would have astonished the most daring fox-hunter or steeplechaser on turfs of earth. She absolutely seemed to fly like a bird. When it is remembered the gravity here is nearly 2/3 less on Mars than on Earth, and that a horse weighing 1,000 pounds there weighs not quite 400 here, according to the terrestrial scale, also that the Martian atmosphere has less than half the weight and density of Earth's, besides containing nearly a double portion of oxygen, it will not surprise my terrestrial friends to be informed that an equine speed of a mile or two a minute is accounted rather a snail's pace here, that Alta and Turgina have often covered 30 miles an hour, and Yavan, mounted by her mistress for a mile stretch, could turn up her pretty nose in disdain at the idea of requiring over 40 seconds to accomplish it. What is called the vital or pulmonary capacity of different classes of the animal kingdom distinguished for powers of speed or flight is relatively much greater than among those of Earth. So it is with the Martian races. Their chests are larger, deeper, and more capacious. The thoracic organs, lungs, heart, blood vessels, are larger and stronger than those of the terrestrial races, while the configurations of all other parts of the anatomical and muscular systems is cast in a much more compact and elegant mode. Let one of the Martian men, women, horses, eagles, lions, or any animal of bird stand side by side with the finest selection of selected specimens of Earth, as competitors for grace, elegance, or beauty, the merest child would instantly award the palm to the former. Our excursions were varied by occasional trips over the bay in the prince's yacht. Now and then a brilliant regatta was held, and sometimes a gay party would go out to sea mounted on Zagulisa's back, and enjoy the playful sport of Ocean Queen amid the rolling billows. The natal day of the prince's majority, for the celebration of which elaborate preparations had been made, was now at hand. In honor of the event there was to be a fête champêtre, with other festivities at the Duke's country seat on the banks of the lake Ambu Siam, or Green Waters, a few hundred miles distant in the interior of the kingdom. In company of the ducal party and many distinguished guests, we left the villa, embarked on several airships, and passed along the shores of the bay, which were ornamented with highly cultivated gardens, vineyards, fine chateaux, and villas, till we reached the broad and majestic Manadi River, which pours its waters into the bay. For many miles upstream it is occupied by great numbers of little islands, on which charming little cottages and pleasure gardens appear here and there amid luxuriant verdure. The channels between the islands are spanned by pretty bridges, pleasure boats, and gondolas with gay parties coursed over the waters. Youths and maidens were engaged in sports on the lawns or under the trees with little children whose happy laughter mingled with the sounds of musical instruments. It was a perfect picture of the happiest Isles of Miraz. We passed up the river about 200 miles and reached the base of the great mountain chain. Here a tributary river, the Jrny, flowed from the southwest, pours into the Maha. We passed up this river, which flows with great velocity. The banks are rugged and rocky, gradually increasing in height, and the river, flowing down a steeper declivity, rushes with tumultuous speed, like the upper rapids of the Niagara, while the precipices rise on either hand to enormous altitudes like the great canyons of the Colorado. After ascending many miles, the river's bed is level and the water is smooth. We coursed amid the deep gorges of the mountains for about 100 miles and reached a station at the base of the precipices. Our party with a few of the guests debarked, while the Duke, Princess, and suite, with several of the cabinet officers, continued their course up the river to the grounds of the chateau. We descended a flight of steps hewn out of rock to a broad platform. 4 richly caparisoned barges manned with crews lay in waiting. We embarked and left the shore. We will now enter the great caverns of Nordovol, under the Bruchati Mountains, said the prince, where you will witness one of the grandest sub-montane displays on the planet. We rounded a projecting promontory and entered a vast semicircular amphitheater, nearly a third of a mile in diameter, completely surrounded by tremendous precipices. In front and extending across it rose the upright facade of an immense barrier of solid green and red rock, resembling the section of a lofty mountain split perpendicular in twain. Its base is pierced by the 3 enormous tunnel-shaped openings, nearly on line with each other, rising in great Gothic arches from 300 to 400 feet high, and forming the giant portals of the sub-montane caverns, through which the waters smoothly flow into the open amphitheater. As our barges glided under the great archways, a scene of unparalleled grandeur was displayed. The whole interior of the mountain is hollowed out into a series of stupendous caverns. Row upon row of pillars and columns from 50 to 100 feet in solid thickness arise from 400 to 600 feet high, supporting on their summits still loftier arches. Gigantic stalactites bang from the arched roofs. Stalagmites, pyramids, towers, minarets, and colossal figures resembling human beings and animals arise from the waters, while strange and fantastic shapes, uncouth and terrible forms loom up ghastly from the dark and deep recesses. After pausing for a while to view this wondrous scene, the prince ordered the cavern to be illuminated. This was accomplished by men stationed along the rocky platforms. From the vaulted arches hung suspended or floated slowly along myriads of great globes, emitting variously colored and brilliant lights. The pillars and columns were surrounded from base to summit with the spiral wreaths of flame. The arches glittered as if spangled over with jewels. The stalactites, pyramids, and towers gleamed with sparkling effulgence, and the colossal images of human and animal forms seemed ready to spring into life and motion. The waters were so pellucid and clear that even at the depth of 50 feet the sand, pebbles, and rocky bottom were plainly visible, while their surface reflected the splendors from above, resembled a vast crystalline mirror tinted with rainbow colors. At some places the boat crews sang songs which reverberated along the galleries with wonderful power and volume. At others, a single word or shout would be re-echoed 20 times. There was a famous acoustic cavern where a whisper could be distinctly heard from one boat to another, although separated from an eighth of a mile apart. For many miles we rode through the caverns and grottos, then directed our course towards the outlet. The entire length of the cavern is 7 miles. Finally we emerged through great Finally we emerged through 4 great arch portals. As we passed out into the open day, a vast aqueous amphitheater of oblong shape, 7 miles long by 3 miles broad, spread out before us. This is the famous intramontane lake Ambucina, hollowed out in the bosom of the mountain, said Altafora. A scene of unparalleled grandeur opens to view. The whole circumference of the lake is surrounded by stupendous precipices from 600 to 1,000 feet high, and now the united thunders of 3 great cataracts burst on the ear. On the right, about 4 miles distant, are 2, the termini of the Yokata Nadi River, a tributary of the Giri Nadi. The first issues from its narrow gorge and descends into 5 cascades. The waters, as they fall from one terrace to another, are torn into whirling masses of foam upon the sharp crags, and dashed with irresistible violence into the lake. This cataract is 400 feet in height. About 2 miles beyond, the upright wall of the barrier is hollowed out from top to bottom in a semicircular gorge, straight as the shaft of a mine. Within this dark recess, which sounds like some gigantic organ pipe, pours forth a deep and solemn tone. The waters fall steep down 600 feet in one long, narrow sheet. From its apparently slow descent, graceful undulations, and transparent envelope of snowy foam, is called the wedding veil. From this point, the precipices, sweeping around to the left, arise in one solid wall, 1,200 feet high, forming the upright rampart of a great mountain chain, severed in twain, from which descends the great cataract of Maha Solimtubu. The waters of the Giri Nadi, arising 800 miles distant amid the Malipondo Mountains, which traverse the continent from north to south, flow through the high tablelands, and finally precipitate themselves into a lake in one vast unbroken sheet, a mile wide, 1,000 feet high. The aspect is inexpressibly sublime. Niagara, the outlet of 4 great lakes, sinks into utter insignificance in comparison with this mighty cataract, which resembles a boundless sea falling from the skies. Its deep and majestic roar reverberates among the surrounding mountains, re-echoes amid the deep caverns, shakes the adamantine walls and towering precipices, while over the weeping rocks, the clashing billows and whirling clouds of spray, so typical of life's conflicts and sufferings, a magnificent rainbow hangs, like a gorgeous crown, emblem of that peace, happiness, and glory which humanity, amidst its struggles and sorrows, may still hope to attain. Nearly the whole circumference of the lake, except in the vicinity of the cataracts and openings of the caverns, is surrounded by broad, rocky platforms, skirting the base of the precipices. We rode directly across the lake to the left of the cataract. The platform were crowded with people who greeted our arrival with cheers. The barges moored up to the shore, our party debarked, and were received by a number of persons attired in rich costumes, and evidently of high rank. The assembled throngs presented a brilliant appearance. The young people of both sexes were attired in garments of gay colors. The display of richly decorated uniforms, robes, mantles, and plumes was like that of a gorgeous court reception. They surrounded us on all sides, and even the presence of the prince could not restrain their audible expressions of astonishment and curiosity at beholding a trio of denizens from the earth. Many looked at me with awe as my stature towered above them all, and as the great Tanhoki war chief stalked majestically through the crowd with the Commodore proudly perched on his shoulder, bowing and kissing his claws right and left, young girls shrank back, and little children took refuge behind their elders, evidently regarding them as a pair of genuine bugaboos from the netherworld. The summits of the precipices in many places were festooned with all manner of flowering vines, hanging down in long streamers and waving in the breeze. Innumerable little cascades and jets of water spouted from the crevices in the rocks, showering down in circular pools hollowed out in the platform. Flocks of birds of strange form and plumage flew over the lake, diving for fish. The air resounded with their melodious cries. Pleasure boats, gondolas, and barges, filled with gay parties, coursed over the waters in all directions. The facade of the precipices near the cataract was straight as a wall, and over 1,000 feet high. It was traversed with upright shafts cut deep in the solid rock from base to summit, in which elevators were swiftly ascending and descending, conveying crowds of people. We entered one, and were quickly raised to the summit of the barrier.